Okay, so get this.
Mm-hmm.
You guys wanted to learn more about self-discipline, and you sent over an excerpt from The Science of Self-Discipline
Okay.
by Peter Hollins.
Oh, cool.
Talk about a treasure trove. We're going to uncover some seriously surprising stuff about willpower.
Okay.
We're talking tactics that even Navy SEALs use. And get ready to bust some myths about motivation because you might even rethink how you set goals after this deep dive.
You know, it's funny because we often think of willpower as this vague, almost magical thing. But
Right.
this book really dives into like the actual science behind it, which I think is really cool because it can totally change how we approach self-discipline entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
not just some abstract idea, it's a real thing in our brains. So let's start with the biology of willpower. Did you know that willpower fatigue is like a real thing?
Oh, yeah.
It's like willpower is a muscle that just gets tired the more we use it.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what's amazing is that researchers can actually see this happening in the brain.
Really?
Like when we resist temptation, specific areas light up,
Yeah.
showing measurable activity.
Wait, hold on. So there's actual visible proof that my brain is working hard when I'm, say, trying not to eat that second slice of cake.
Exactly. It's not just happening in our imaginations.
That's wild.
And here's a really cool part. Because of neuroplasticity,
Okay.
our brains can actually get better at self-control with practice.
Really?
So it's not this fixed trait we're stuck with.
That is seriously encouraging. It's like building mental muscle. Every time we resist that temptation, we're giving our brains a workout.
That's a great way to think about it.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
willpower alone can be tough to rely on, wouldn't you say?
Totally. I mean, I can resist that donut in the morning,
Right.
but by the afternoon, my willpower is basically non-existent. Yeah. What about motivation? I feel like that's the key to making self-discipline stick long-term.
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Okay.
And this book busts a major myth
Okay.
about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all about money.
Wait, really? I always thought money was like the big motivator.
Yeah.
Like the driving force behind, most people's actions. What else could it be?
Well, research shows
Okay.
it's the feeling of making progress towards something we find meaningful.
Oh.
That sense of accomplishment,
Yeah.
of moving towards a goal that matters to us, is a much stronger motivator than money alone.
That actually makes a lot of sense. When I think about times I've been the most productive and driven, it's always been when I'm working on something that I'm passionate about,
Yeah.
not just for a paycheck.
Exactly. And this is where Daniel Pink's work comes in.
Okay.
He talks about 3
All right.
key intrinsic motivators:
Okay.
autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Okay. Break those down for me. Because I think I have a general idea, but I want to make sure I'm understanding them correctly.
Absolutely. So autonomy is that feeling of having control
Right.
over your own work and choices.
Okay.
It's that freedom
Mm-hmm.
and independence that fuels our drive.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's mastery, which is the satisfaction of getting good at something,
Okay.
of developing a skill,
Right.
and seeing yourself improve.
Yeah.
And finally,
Okay.
there's purpose. The feeling that what you're doing has meaning beyond just yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that it contributes to something bigger.
So it's like finding that sweet spot where we have the freedom to work on something we enjoy. We're constantly learning and improving, and we feel like our work has a real impact. That sounds way more motivating than just chasing a bigger paycheck.
It is.
Yeah.
And, we tap into those intrinsic motivators. It makes staying disciplined so much easier.
Right.
But what about when we hit a wall?
Oh, tell me about it.
Those times when we're exhausted, stressed, and our motivation is totally tanked.
Those are the times I need self-discipline the most,
Right.
but also the times when it seems to completely abandon me. What does the book say about pushing through those moments?
Get this. It talks about secrets
Okay.
from the Navy SEALs.
Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
As in the elite military unit.
Yes.
What do they have to do with self-discipline?
Everything. These guys are practically the definition
Okay.
of mental toughness.
Right.
And they use something called the 40% rule.
The 40% rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm listening.
This states that when you think you're completely maxed out,
Mm-hmm.
physically or mentally,
Right?
you've actually only used about 40% of your true capacity.
Wait, seriously? You're telling me I have another 60% just sitting there waiting to be unleashed?
Yeah.
I knew I had untapped potential, but that's incredible.
Mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
Think about a time you pushed past
Yeah.
what you thought were your limits.
Yeah.
You probably had more in you than you realized.
You know what? There was that time I signed up for a 10K race, even though I'd barely been jogging.
Oh, wow.
And I was sure I wasn't going to make it, but somehow I finished.
There you go.
Right.
That's the 40% rule in action.
Wow.
The key is to recognize that our minds tend to give up long before our bodies do.
So how do we tap into that extra 60%? How do we convince our brains to keep going when they're screaming at us to stop?
One technique the book highlights is the goal proximity effect.
Okay.
The closer we get to a goal, the more motivated we become. It's like when marathon runners hit that last mile and they find a sudden burst of energy to sprint to the finish line.
I've totally experienced that.
Right.
There's something about seeing that finish line that just flips a switch in my brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we can use that to our advantage by breaking down big goals into smaller milestones.
Right.
We can experience that motivating goal proximity effect.
I see. Yeah.
More often.
That's such a good strategy. It makes those big, overwhelming goals feel much more achievable when we can focus on those smaller wins along the way. But let's be real.
Yeah.
There are times when we just feel totally overwhelmed and stressed.
Right.
What do we do then?
For that, we can borrow a technique from the SEALs.
Okay.
It's called box breathing.
Box breathing.
Yeah. It's a simple breathing exercise that helps calm your nervous system and regain focus.
Okay. I am definitely interested in learning how to manage stress like a Navy SEAL. Teach me.
It's super simple, but effective. You breathe in for a count of 4.
Okay.
Hold for 4.
Got it.
Breathe out for 4 and hold again for 4.
Okay.
And you repeat that until you feel your heart rate slowing down and your mind calming down.
That sounds almost like meditation, but with a little bit more structure.
You could think of it that way.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your focus from the external chaos to your breath, bringing you back to the present moment and calming that fight or flight response.
I'm adding this to my mental toolkit immediately. Box breathing, check.
I love it.
But even with all the willpower and stress management in the world, there are still those pesky things that can just totally sabotage our self-discipline.
You're absolutely right. And the book outlines
Okay.
some major discipline drainers that we should all be aware of. Let's start with the false hope syndrome.
The false hope syndrome. Okay, that sounds ominous. What is that all about?
It's that tendency we have to set these massive, unrealistic goals for ourselves. We get all excited about a new challenge, and we think we can change everything overnight.
Yeah.
But it sets us up for failure.
Ugh, I am so guilty of this. I'll decide to completely overhaul my diet, start a new workout routine, and learn a new language all at the same time.
Oh.
And then, surprise, surprise, I crash and burn within a week.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
We get caught up in the excitement.
Right.
But lasting change takes time and consistent effort.
So what's the solution? How do we set ourselves up for success instead of falling into the false hope syndrome trap?
Being realistic is key.
Okay.
We need to acknowledge the effort required.
Right.
And break those big goals down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right.
It's much less daunting to focus on those smaller wins and celebrate our progress along the way.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yes.
Sometimes I get so focused on the 1,000 miles that I forget about the importance of that first step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of taking action, another big discipline drainer is procrastination.
Ugh, procrastination. My nemesis. It's incredible how good I am at convincing myself that tomorrow is a better day to start than today.
And you know what? This book points out that a lot of procrastination is fueled by perfectionism.
Right.
We wait for the perfect time to start.
Oh, yeah.
For the perfect conditions.
Right.
But that moment rarely arrives.
That is so true. I've wasted countless hours waiting for, like, inspiration to strike or for all the stars to align. Newsflash.
Yeah.
It never happens.
Right. And the antidote to procrastination is something called the 75% rule.
The 75% rule. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
It's simple.
Okay.
But powerful.
Okay.
Take action when you're 75% sure you'll succeed.
Okay.
Don't wait for 100% certainty.
Right.
Because it rarely comes.
I love that.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off of needing everything to be perfect before I start.
Yes.
Done is better than perfect, right?
Exactly. It's about embracing imperfection.
Yeah.
And recognizing that taking action even if it's messy or imperfect, is still progress.
I love that.
But there's another sneaky culprit the book talks about, rationalization.
Oh, I know rationalization all too well. I am an expert at justifying my procrastination and making excuses for not following through.
We all do it to some extent.
Right.
But the danger of rationalization is that it lets us use past good behavior as an excuse for present slip-ups.
Right.
It's like saying, well, I was really disciplined yesterday, so I deserve a break today.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to store up all our discipline points and then cash them in for a free pass on bad behavior.
Right. But the book emphasizes that each choice we make stands on its own. We don't get to carry over credit from past behavior.
Okay. Ouch, that's a tough pill to swallow.
I know.
But you're right. It means we need to be mindful about each choice we make in the present moment.
Yes.
Regardless of how we behaved yesterday.
Exactly. And there's another important concept that plays into this.
Okay.
Have you heard of Parkinson's Law?
Parkinson's Law, I feel like I've heard of it.
Yeah.
But I can't quite remember what it is.
It states that work expands to fill the time allotted. So if we give ourselves a week to complete a task, it'll probably take us the entire week.
Yeah.
Even if we could have finished it in a day or two.
Oh, wow. That is so me. If I give myself too much time for a project, I inevitably end up stretching it out and filling that time with busy work.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
And it can be a huge drain on our productivity and self-discipline.
Yeah.
We waste valuable time and energy on things that aren't truly important.
So how do we combat this Parkinson's Law effect?
The book suggests setting more aggressive deadlines. When we give ourselves less time to complete a task, we're forced to be more focused and efficient.
That's a great tip. It's like creating a sense of urgency that propels us forward. But we've been talking a lot about like our internal world, you know, our willpower and our motivation. What about the role of our environment? Can our surroundings influence our self-discipline?
Absolutely. The book devotes a whole chapter to the power of our environment.
Okay.
One key takeaway is we are wired to choose the easiest option.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm all about convenience, and I know that can sometimes work against my best intentions.
It's human nature. Our brains are constantly trying to conserve energy, so we naturally gravitate toward whatever requires the least effort.
So how do we use this to our advantage when it comes to self-discipline? How do we make the good choices? The easy choices?
It's all about designing our environment to make those positive choices. The default option. The book points out that things like the candy at the checkout aisle or the social media apps on our phones are strategically placed to take advantage of this tendency.
You're right. I never thought about it that way, but it makes perfect sense. Those temptations are practically unavoidable, especially when our willpower is already depleted. So instead of trying to fight against our natural tendencies, we can use them to our advantage by making healthy choices more convenient and accessible. We increase the likelihood that we'll choose them, even when we're not feeling particularly disciplined.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm on board. Give me some practical tips for designing my environment for success. What are some things I can do right now to make those good choices easier?
One simple change is to put those healthy snacks front and center. And keep the tempting treats out of sight.
I like that.
Another is to log out of distracting apps on your phone, so you have to consciously log back in each time you want to use them.
Those are great ideas. I can already see how those small changes could make a big difference in my daily choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like removing the temptation altogether, which takes some of the pressure off of my willpower.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of visual cues. If you want to exercise more, leave your workout clothes out where you'll see them first thing in the morning.
I love it.
Just a simple reminder that nudges you in the right direction.
It's like creating a little visual trigger for my brain.
Yes.
But we've been talking a lot about individual effort. What about the influence of other people?
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Do our relationships affect our ability to stay disciplined?
They absolutely do. This book dives into the social side of willpower. And it's more powerful than we often realize. You know how we always underestimate the influence of social pressure?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've definitely made some questionable choices in the past just to fit in or impress other people.
It's a natural human tendency. We're wired to want to belong.
Right.
And that can sometimes override our own better judgment.
Yeah.
And the research backs this up, too.
Really? Are there any specific studies
Yes.
that highlight this social pressure effect?
There's a classic one called the Ash conformity experiments.
Okay.
Basically, they asked people to answer a simple visual question that had an obvious correct answer.
Got it.
But they planted actors in the group who intentionally gave the wrong answer.
So they created a situation where the participants were surrounded by people giving the incorrect answer.
Yes.
What happened? Did people stick to their guns and give the obviously correct answer?
You think so, right?
Right.
But surprisingly, over a third of the participants conformed to the group and gave the wrong answer.
Wow.
Even though they knew it was wrong.
That's crazy.
I know.
It shows how powerful social pressure can be.
Yeah.
Even when it goes against our own logic and reasoning.
Exactly. And this has big implications for self-discipline.
Right.
If we're constantly surrounded by people who encourage our bad habits or tempt us to stray from our plans, it's going to be a lot harder to stay on track.
It's like trying to swim upstream against a current of negative influences. So what's the solution? How do we make sure our social circles are supporting our self-discipline journey?
Being mindful of who we surround ourselves with is crucial.
Right.
Spending time with people who share our values and goals, who are also striving for self-improvement, can make a huge difference. It's like having a built-in support system.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders in our corner, encouraging us, keeping us accountable. I love that.
But what about sharing our goals with others? Isn't that supposed to be good for accountability?
That's what I've always heard.
That's a common belief.
Right.
But the book presents some interesting research that challenges that idea.
Really?
Sometimes sharing our goals can actually backfire.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
I've always been told that telling people about my goals helps me stay committed.
Yeah.
What does the research say?
Studies have shown that sharing our goals can sometimes give us a premature sense of accomplishment.
Oh.
We get that social recognition and validation.
Right.
Which can trick our brains into thinking we've already made progress.
It's like getting the reward before we've actually done the work.
Yeah.
No wonder it can sap our motivation.
Exactly. So while having social support is important, we need to be mindful about how and with whom we share our goals.
So what's the best approach? Should we just keep our goals to ourselves entirely?
Not necessarily. The book suggests finding an accountability partner.
Okay.
Someone who will hold us to our commitments.
Right.
But won't shower us with premature praise.
I see.
It's like having a supportive coach or mentor.
Right.
Who will cheer us on but also call us out.
Right.
When we're slacking.
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Yeah.
It's about having someone who provides support and accountability without diminishing our own internal motivation.
Absolutely.
This is all so eye-opening. I'm starting to see self-discipline in a whole new light.
Yeah.
It's not just about willpower and grit. It's about understanding our brains, our environments, and the power of our social circles.
You've got it. And there's one more crucial element we haven't touched on yet. The power of delayed gratification.
Oh, yeah. The ability to resist those immediate pleasures in pursuit of long-term rewards. That's got to be a cornerstone of self-discipline, right?
It is. And this is where the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment comes in.
Ah, yes, the marshmallow test. I've definitely heard of it, but refresh my memory. What exactly was it about?
In a nutshell, researchers presented young children with a choice. Eat one marshmallow immediately or wait a short period of time and get 2 marshmallows.
Okay, that sounds deceptively simple. What did they find? Did those kids just go for the instant gratification, or did they have the willpower to hold out for double the marshmallows?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The researchers found that the kids who were able to delay gratification and wait for the 2 marshmallows tended to be more successful later in life. We're talking better academic performance. Higher self-esteem.
Wow.
Even better health outcomes.
That's amazing. It's like that simple ability to delay gratification was a predictor of success in so many areas of life.
It really was. And it highlights that delayed gratification is about more than just resisting treats.
Right.
It's about developing the ability to prioritize long-term goals over those short-term impulses.
So how do we get better at delaying gratification? Are we doomed if we happen to be the type who can't resist that instant marshmallow?
Well, the book stresses the importance of connecting with our values and long-term goals.
Okay.
It's about asking ourselves,
Yeah.
what are we willing to delay gratification for?
That's such a good question.
It is.
It forces us to really think about what matters to us and use that as fuel to make those tough choices in the present moment.
For example, let's say your goal is to save up for a dream vacation.
Yeah, okay.
That vision of yourself relaxing on a beach can be a powerful motivator to resist those impulse purchases that would deplete your savings.
It's about keeping our eyes on the prize.
Yeah.
Even when those immediate temptations are whispering sweet nothings in our ears.
Yes.
But what about those moments when our willpower is waning and we're on the verge of giving in? Are there any specific strategies that can help us stay on track?
The book introduces a really helpful tool for those moments.
Okay.
The 10-10-10 rule.
Okay. I am all about these rules and frameworks. What is the magic behind the 10-10-10 rule?
It's all about visualizing our future selves.
Right.
When we're facing a temptation, we ask ourselves, how will this choice impact me?
Okay.
In 10 minutes, 10 hours, and 10 days.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It forces us to think beyond the immediate gratification and consider the long-term consequences of our actions. It's like asking ourselves, what kind of future am I creating with this choice?
Exactly. And by connecting with that future vision of ourselves, we can tap into a deeper level of motivation.
It's like having a little angel on our shoulder, reminding us of what's truly important.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely going to try this the next time I'm tempted to make a less than ideal choice.
I think you'll find it surprisingly effective.
Yeah.
And the book also offers some powerful questions to help us combat those rationalizations and excuses that often derail our self-discipline.
Hit me with those questions. I'm ready to upgrade my self-awareness and banish those excuses for good.
Here's the first one.
Okay.
Do I want to be a disciplined person?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront our own identity and decide what kind of person we aspire to be.
Right. The second question is, am I doing the right thing or am I just doing the easy thing?
Ouch, that one hits close to home.
I know, right?
It's a reminder to stay aligned with our values and not just choose the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The third question reframes our perspective on the benefits of discipline. What am I getting for dessert?
What am I getting for dessert?
In other words, what is the reward for this discipline?
I love that. It helps us focus on the positive outcomes and reminds us that discipline isn't about punishment. It's about investing in ourselves and our future.
And the final question prompts us to check in with ourselves. Am I being self-aware?
That's the key to it all, isn't it?
It is.
We need to be mindful of our thoughts and feelings and behaviors in order to catch ourselves when we're starting to slip up.
You've got it. These questions.
Welcome back to our deep dive into self-discipline. Last time, we talked about some pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Willpower, motivation.
Right.
Even learned some tactics from the Navy SEALs themselves.
It's crazy, right?
It is crazy. But there's something I've been thinking about. We can have these moments of incredible self-control. We can push past our perceived limits, but then we fall right back into our old habits. It feels like being on a self-discipline roller coaster. Up and down, never quite reaching that steady state. So how do we make those disciplined choices stick long term? I feel like that's the real challenge.
That's where habits come in. This book really emphasizes that habits are the foundation of lasting self-discipline.
Okay.
They take the effort out of willpower by making those positive choices automatic.
That sounds incredible, almost like self-discipline on autopilot.
Yes.
But honestly, forming new habits is something I really struggle with.
Yeah.
I start with the best intentions, but then I fizzle out after a week or two. What's the secret?
Well, there's no magic bullet.
Right.
But the book does offer some research-backed insights that can make a big difference. First, it's important to understand that habit formation takes time. On average, about 66 days.
66 days. Wow. That's a lot longer than I usually give myself.
Right.
No wonder I haven't been successful. I guess I've been underestimating the commitment it takes.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to start small.
Okay.
And be consistent. Trying to change everything at once is just a recipe for burnout.
So it's about picking one small habit to focus on?
Yes.
And then consistently repeating it until it becomes ingrained.
Exactly. Instead of going from 0 to 60,
yeah,
start with something manageable.
Okay.
Let's say you want to make exercise a regular habit.
Right.
Don't jump into intense workouts right away.
Right.
Start with a short walk each day, even if it's just for 10 minutes.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
It feels less overwhelming when you put it that way.
Right.
It's not about the intensity. It's about building that foundation of consistency.
Consistency is key.
Yeah.
But even when we're committed, there are still going to be days when we just don't feel like sticking to our new habit.
Yeah.
So how do we push through?
I know that feeling all too well.
Right.
It's like my brain just throws a tantrum and says, nope, not today.
Exactly.
So how do we convince ourselves to stick with it even when we're not feeling it?
Well, the book dives into the science behind this. And it turns out that habits are actually driven by a different part of our brain than conscious decision-making.
Huh?
It's called the basal ganglia.
Okay.
And it's associated with emotions, patterns, and memories. When behaviors become habits, they become like hardwired into this part of the brain. And we operate on autopilot.
So it's like those habitual actions are happening almost unconsciously. We're not even really thinking about them.
That's exactly it. And that's why it can feel so uncomfortable.
Right.
At first, when we try to break an old habit or create a new one, our brains resist the change.
Yeah.
Making us feel like we're doing something wrong.
It's like we're trying to teach our brains a new trick.
Yes.
And they're kicking and screaming the whole way.
That's a perfect analogy. And the advice that the book gives is to embrace that wrongness.
Okay.
Accept that it's going to feel weird and unnatural at first, but don't give up.
Right.
Keep going.
So it's about pushing through that initial discomfort and trusting that it will become more natural over time.
Precisely. You're essentially retraining your brain to adopt that new pattern of behavior. And eventually, it will become just as automatic as the old habit.
That is so empowering.
It is.
It means that even those deeply ingrained habits aren't set in stone. We really can change if we're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest, change is hard. Are there any strategies that can increase our chances of success?
Absolutely. The book introduces a framework called the 6 Sources of Influence model. It helps us understand all the factors that shape our behavior, both internally and externally.
Ooh, I love a good framework. Break it down for me. What are these 6 sources of influence?
It starts with personal motivation and ability.
Okay.
This is about how much we actually want to change.
Right.
And whether we believe we have the skills and resources to do it.
That makes perfect sense. If we're not truly motivated or if we don't feel capable, it's going to be a lot harder to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's like trying to climb a mountain without the right gear or the belief that we can actually reach the summit.
Exactly. Then we move to the social level.
Okay.
Social motivation and ability.
Okay.
This is all about the influence of the people around us.
Okay.
Do our social networks support our goals? Do we have people who encourage us and hold us accountable?
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
The importance of surrounding ourselves with people who are aligned with our values and goals.
Right. It's like having a team of Sherpas to guide us on our climb, offering support and encouragement along the way.
I love that analogy.
And finally, we have to consider the structural level, structural motivation and ability. This is all about our environment.
Okay.
Does it support or hinder our efforts?
So it's about designing our environment to make those good choices easier and more accessible.
Yes.
We talked about this before. Things like keeping healthy snacks within reach and logging out of distracting apps.
Exactly. It's about removing those obstacles on our path and setting ourselves up for success. Think of it this way.
Okay.
You wouldn't try to climb a mountain with a bunch of heavyweights strapped to your back, would you?
Definitely not. I'd want to make the climb as easy as possible.
Right. And that's what we're doing when we design our environment for success. We're removing those unnecessary burdens and creating a smoother path for ourselves.
The 6 Sources of Influence model is so helpful.
It's a good one.
It's like having a map of the terrain, helping us identify potential challenges and strategize for success. But let's be real, even with the best preparation and support, there are still going to be times when we stumble.
Oh, for sure.
What about those moments when we slip up and fall back into old patterns? What do we do then?
It happens to everyone.
Right.
The key is to not let those slip-ups derail our entire journey.
Right.
Remember, we're talking about habit formation.
Yeah.
It's about those long-term patterns, not about achieving perfect consistency every single day.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And one of the most important things we can do is to develop self-compassion.
Okay.
Instead of beating ourselves up when we make a mistake, we can view those slip-ups as opportunities to learn and grow.
That's such a good point. It's about shifting our mindset from self-criticism to self-compassion. Instead of focusing on the misstep, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time?
That's a much more productive approach.
Right.
It allows us to view those setbacks as part of the process, not as signs of failure. And, sometimes it's helpful to reframe our thinking around those habits we're trying to break.
What do you mean by that? How can we reframe our thinking about bad habits?
Instead of seeing them as enemies to be conquered, we could view them as simply outdated programs running in the background of our minds.
Ooh, I like that. It's like our brains are running old software that needs an update.
Exactly. And when we approach it from that perspective, it feels less personal and less daunting. It's not about fighting against ourselves. It's about recognizing that those old programs are no longer serving us and choosing to upgrade to a new operating system.
So it's about consciously choosing to install those new, more empowering habits.
It's a great way to put it. And remember, just like with any software update, there might be a few glitches along the way. But with patience and persistence, those new habits will eventually become the default mode.
This is giving me so much hope.
Good.
It's like you're saying that lasting change really is possible, even for those of us who've struggled with self-discipline in the past.
It absolutely is.
That's awesome.
It's about understanding the science behind habit formation, being kind to ourselves along the way, and having faith in our ability to evolve and grow.
I'm feeling so inspired. But what about those times when our motivation dips and we need a little extra boost? Are there any strategies for re-energizing our self-discipline?
This book is full of helpful tips.
Good.
One that I find particularly effective is to tap into the power of visualization.
Visualization, huh? I've heard of that, but I've never really tried it myself. What's the science behind it, and how can it help with self-discipline?
Our brains are incredibly powerful. And they have a hard time distinguishing between real and imagined experiences. So when we vividly imagine ourselves successfully achieving our goals, our brains start to create those neural pathways.
So it's like we're mentally rehearsing for success.
Exactly. And the more detailed and emotionally engaging that mental rehearsal is, the more impactful it will be.
Got it.
It's like training our brains to believe that those goals are not only achievable, but inevitable.
I'm definitely going to give this a try.
Good.
What are some other ways we can boost our motivation and stay committed to our goals?
Another powerful technique is to create a system of rewards and accountability. It's like setting up a game for ourselves with clear milestones and incentives along the way.
Ooh, I like that. It's like gamifying the self-discipline journey.
Exactly. Our brains love rewards, so by creating a system that celebrates our progress and reinforces those positive behaviors, we can make the journey much more enjoyable and sustainable.
That makes sense.
And the accountability piece is important too.
Why is accountability so crucial?
It adds a layer of external motivation that can be especially helpful when our internal willpower is waning. Having someone to check in with, to share our progress and challenges, can provide that extra push. We need to stay on track.
It's like having a workout buddy for our self-discipline journey.
Exactly.
Someone to cheer us on, offer support, and maybe even give us a little tough love when we need it.
And there are all sorts of ways to create accountability. We can find a friend or family member who shares similar goals. Join a support group. Or even hire a coach.
This is such great advice. I'm already starting to brainstorm ways to create more accountability in my own life.
Awesome.
But what about those times when we're facing a really tough decision and we're struggling to choose the disciplined option? Are there any mental tricks we can use?
Absolutely. To make those choices easier. One strategy that can be really helpful is to shift our focus from the present moment to our future self. Imagine yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, even 10 years from now. How will this choice impact your future self?
That's a powerful exercise.
It is.
It forces us to think beyond the immediate gratification and consider the long-term consequences of our actions. It's like asking ourselves, what kind of future am I creating with this choice?
Exactly. And By connecting with that future vision of ourselves, we can tap into a deeper level of motivation and make choices that align with our long-term goals. We can also use a technique called mental contrasting.
Mental contrasting, huh? That sounds intriguing. What is that all about?
It's a way of visualizing both the positive outcome we're hoping to achieve and the potential obstacles that might stand in our way.
So it's like simultaneously envisioning our dream scenario and our worst nightmare.
You got it. And while that might sound counterintuitive, research has shown that mental contrasting can actually be more effective than simply focusing on the positive.
Why is that?
Because it helps us identify those potential obstacles and develop strategies for overcoming them. By acknowledging those challenges, we can proactively plan for them and reduce the likelihood that they'll derail our efforts. It's like mentally preparing for battle, anticipating those potential threats and equipping ourselves with the tools and tactics we need to emerge victorious.
That is so smart. It's like we're pre-programming our brains for success by anticipating those challenges and developing solutions in advance.
And another key to making those tough choices is to cultivate a growth mindset.
Ooh, growth mindset. I've heard that term before. Can you remind me what it means and how it relates to self-discipline?
Essentially, it's the belief that our abilities are not fixed, but rather they can be developed and improved through effort and learning. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges, view setbacks as opportunities for growth, and persist in the face of adversity.
It's like seeing ourselves as works in progress, always evolving and expanding our capabilities.
And that mindset is crucial for self-discipline because it helps us reframe our perspective on failure. Instead of seeing setbacks as evidence of our limitations, we see them as valuable feedback that can help us refine our strategies and grow stronger.
So it's about shifting our focus from, I can't do this, to, I'm learning how to do this.
Precisely. And that shift in perspective can make a world of difference.
This is so inspiring. I feel like I'm finally starting to crack the code of self-discipline.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the journey.
Yes.
Developing those empowering habits and cultivating a mindset that supports our growth and success.
You've got it. And we haven't even touched on the final chapter yet. Which is all about building systems and routines that make self-discipline sustainable.
I can't wait to learn more about how to create a life that supports my self-discipline journey. This is getting really exciting. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of self-discipline. And I have to say, my mind is officially blown. This has been such an incredible journey of discovery.
It really has.
You know, we've gone deep into the science of willpower. We've explored the power of motivation and learned how to create a foundation of solid habits. But there's one piece of the puzzle that we haven't talked about yet. The role of systems and routines in making self-discipline sustainable long-term. So we've talked about willpower, motivation, habits. But how do we actually put all of this together into a system that works for us in our daily lives?
It's about creating a structure that supports our goals and makes those discipline choices easier. Think of it this way. If you're trying to lose weight, having a pantry full of junk food is going to make it a lot harder to stick to your diet.
That's so true. It's like setting ourselves up for failure before we even begin.
So instead of relying solely on willpower to resist those temptations, we can create systems that remove those temptations altogether. In this case, it might mean stocking your pantry with healthy snacks and making sure those unhealthy options are out of sight and out of mind.
So it's about being proactive and designing our environment to support our goals. It's not about being perfect. It's about making it easier to make those good choices.
Exactly. And this applies to all areas of our lives. If we want to exercise more, we can schedule those workouts into our calendars and treat them like important appointments. If we want to be more productive, we can create a designated workspace free from distractions.
It's like creating those guardrails that keep us on track even when our willpower is wavering.
And one of the most powerful systems we can create is a morning routine.
I've heard a lot about the importance of morning routines. But I have to admit, I'm not always the best at sticking to one. So what makes them so impactful?
Morning routines set the tone for the entire day. By starting our day with intentional actions that align with our goals. We prime ourselves for success. It's like setting the compass for the journey ahead.
So it's about creating that positive momentum first thing in the morning, which then carries through to the rest of our day.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Even a simple routine of waking up at a consistent time, drinking a glass of water, and spending a few minutes meditating or journaling can make a big difference.
It's about finding what works for us and creating those small wins that build our confidence and set us up for a successful day.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that's really helped me with consistency is to attach new habits to existing routines.
Tell me more about that.
Can you give me an example of how that works?
Sure. Let's say you want to start a daily meditation practice.
Okay.
Instead of trying to create a whole new time slot for it, you could attach it to an existing habit, like brushing your teeth. So every time you brush your teeth, you meditate for 5 minutes.
That's brilliant. It's like piggybacking on those already established routines.
Exactly. Our brains love patterns. So by linking those new habits to existing neural pathways, we increase the likelihood that those new behaviors will stick.
This is so helpful. I'm already starting to think about how I can incorporate these strategies into my own life. But what about those times when our systems and routines fall apart? Life throws us curveballs, unexpected things come up. And sometimes we just don't have the energy or motivation to stick to our plans. What do we do then?
It's about being flexible. And adaptable. One strategy that the book recommends is to have a plan for those inevitable setbacks.
So it's like having a backup plan for our backup plan.
Exactly. It's about anticipating those potential obstacles. And developing strategies for dealing with them. For example, if your goal is to work out every morning, but you wake up one day feeling exhausted, you might have a backup plan to do a shorter, gentler workout instead of skipping it altogether.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's about finding ways to stay on track even when we can't stick to our ideal plan. It's about progress over perfection.
You got it. And you know, one thing that's really helped me over the years is to shift my perspective on those inevitable slip-ups.
How do you mean?
Instead of seeing them as failures, I try to view them as data points. They provide valuable information about what's working and what's not. And they help me refine my systems and strategies. It's all part of the process of growth and learning.
It's like those slip-ups are actually valuable feedback. That help us course correct and get back on track.
Exactly. And, you know, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to simply give ourselves grace. We're human, and we're not going to be perfect all the time. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to have those off days. What matters is that we learn from those experiences and keep moving forward.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It has been fun.
I feel like I've learned so much about self-discipline and how to create a life that supports my growth and success.
Good.
But I have a feeling this is just the beginning of the journey.
It is. Self-discipline is a lifelong practice, a constant evolution of learning, experimenting, and refining our approaches. And the most important thing is to find what works for us, to create systems and routines that feel sustainable and empowering, and to always remember that we are capable of more than we think.
So well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on.
Right.
Remember, you are capable of amazing things. And if you're feeling inspired to take action, we encourage you to share your journey with us. We'd love to hear about the changes you're making and the successes you're celebrating along the way.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, and your story might just inspire someone else to embark on their own self-discipline adventure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into self-discipline.